Okay, again, this is our Ask the Expert New Year, New Strategies, Building Habits That Stick with ADHD. We are here today with Bruce Hughes. Bruce is one of our ADHD and executive functioning coaches. He also offers career coaching. Um, he's been a wonderful asset to our team, and I'm so happy to do this with you. Just a little bit about Bruce. So he offers ADHD executive functioning and career development to mid-career and late diagnosed professionals with ADHD. He provides customized and culturally competent support for neurodivergent, BIPOC, and LGBTQ youth adults or young adults and millennials. With over 20 years of experience in project management, organizational change management, and leadership development, Bruce offers tailored coaching for clients facing employment barriers due to their ADHD diagnosis. He holds a number of certifications. We're so happy to have you here. Bruce, I'm just gonna I'm gonna turn this one over to you now.
Thank you, Julianne. Good morning or good afternoon, everybody, depending on where you are. I'm Bruce, and I'm happy to be here with you today. I think what we'll do is I'll start with a brief definition of like what ADHD is, and then get into a discussion about why it makes habits hard to build. Um, I'll give you some right off the top, a couple of things you can do that are applicable to a wide variety of situations. So those of you, if you have to jump early, you'll get some tips, even if you can't stay for the entire time. And then I'll get into some examples of things that we are commonly trying to build habits around, exercising, eating better, sleeping better. And I'll answer any questions that you have that you put in the chat throughout the presentation. I think I will start with just recounting a bit of some personal experience. I also have ADHD. I was diagnosed in my mid 30s, so 5 or 6 years ago. And that is what inspired me to become a coach because I was learning about it and I thought, oh, we need to help everybody else who's got the same issue. And most of my clients come in with the concern of, I wish I could be more consistent. And I'm like, what do you mean more consistent? What does consistency looks like? And it's like, oh, well, I want to be able to say that I wanted to learn guitar and I did. Or I wanted to eat better and I did. Or I wanted to go to sleep on time and I did. And you start to get a sense of um, guilt and shame over like, why can't I do this? It seems like everybody else has figured out a way to just do it. Like, why can't I force myself to just get in gear? And there are some things about the ways that our brain works that can make that kind of challenging. A part of my style includes psychoeducation. So I like to know like what's happening in our brain that makes it difficult. And if you know where the deficits are, then you can choose solutions that work best for you. And that is where I will start. So let me pull up my slides here, share my screen. I get tired of saying share my screen. I feel like we say that so much
Can
now.
you hear me? Yeah, I feel
So, yeah.
like
All right. All right. Can you all see it?
yes.
Okay. New year, new strategies. We're just going to abbreviate this by saying new year, new me.
Love it.
All right. So you might be thinking, well, let me just clarify what ADHD is. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. We use acronyms a lot, so we just want to make sure we all know what we're talking about. Can have a almost debilitating impact sometimes on our ability to pay attention, to concentrate. It can impact our impulse control. We tend to be more distractible and can sometimes be hyperactive. But something that we don't talk about as often is that it can impair our motivation. Now, you might be thinking, well, what if I don't have ADHD or I've not been diagnosed? Can I still benefit from what we'll talk about today? You can. And if you fall into this category, then the things that we are going to be talking about today might work for you. So if you struggle to finish projects ever, if you have difficulty getting organized, you have a hard time remembering appointments, Maybe you avoid or procrastinate on getting started on your tasks. You feel overly active and sometimes like driven to do things. Maybe you have inattention issues where you might make careless mistakes. You lose things like your keys or your wallet. Things are often boring to you. Maybe you get distracted easily. You struggle to wait your turn. If any of that sounds like you, you're absolutely in the right place, even if you don't have the formal diagnosis. I will recommend, though, that at some point, if that sounds a lot like you, that you talk to your clinician to get the diagnosis and get the treatment and support that you need. But in terms of why ADHD can make habit building hard, I feel like dopamine now is such a common term in our lexicon, but essentially what's going on in our brain that makes it hard is that there is a part of the brain, or there's four pathways in your brain that can impact motivation. There's one of them, the mesocortical, where the dopamine comes from the middle of your brain and goes up to your prefrontal cortex. The reason why this stuff is important up here is because it helps us get things done. Like I've heard ADHD described as sort of a disorder of not being able to get stuff done, either because it feels too hard, or we don't know the first step, or because it feels too complicated. So all of those things that we use to make decisions, like being able to plan and organize, problem solve, remember things, those are all types of executive functioning or cognitive components that are negatively impacted by ADHD. So what that means is that when we're trying to build a habit, the very brain that we need to help us like be able to do things is actually might kind of working against us. Um, Another thing that can make it hard for for those of us with ADHD, is that there's a lack of immediate reward. So if we have a choice between doing something that pays off right now or doing something that pays off, maybe even at a greater benefit farther into the future, we're going to always pick right now. Another challenge we can have is with time blindness. So have you ever just like totally lost sense of time, like how much time has gone by? Maybe sometimes it can feel like time is going by very slowly. Other times it can feel like it's flying by. And you look up and you're like, wow, I was on this YouTube rabbit hole for the past 90 minutes and I did not even realize it until now. Also creates some issues with difficulty with consistency. So when things feel like monotonous, or when we're like, I don't want to make a schedule or be forced to do this at the same time of day. Like I want to have my options open in case something pops up. Uh, that could be your ADHD popping up, making it difficult for you to be consistent. This fifth one, emotional dysregulation. So this could show up with challenges we have around negative self-talk, like why can't we do this, or like why haven't we figured out the way to do this yet? Could also be perfectionism, a sense of like if we can't do it the absolute best possible way, then we just won't get started. Or when we get ready to start a really relatively simple task, we'll add all of these other requirements onto it so that it turns into this massive project. And we're like, well, now I can't start because I don't have all the tools that I need or the energy that I need to be able to do it. Our poor working memory. So working memory is our ability to hold things in our head. There's also nonverbal working memory where it's hard for us to sometimes like retrace steps or like remember what we heard or wrote down. And that can get in the way of building habits. And then struggles with long motivation, which is a type of low motivation. Also a typo.
Oh, I was like, I've never heard of that before.
That's a special ADHD type of motivation. Yeah, where you typed M instead of W. Or we just won't, it's hard to get motivated. So the part of the challenge of having the lack of dopamine is that the behaviors that we want to reinforce because they are positive, like we don't get that same sense of satisfaction from it. So there's not the same reinforcement to say, oh, let's do this thing again because it really paid off for us. Now, I just went over 7 things that can make building habits hard. And you might be like, Bruce, come on now, we need some motivation. That's okay. We got 10 things that you can do about it.
I do
I
want
want
to
to
stop
jump
you.
in.
I want to stop you real quick because I completely agree. Someone said I'm
Ah,
laughing at how spot on this is because everything that you just said completely resonates with me,
ah.
summarizes all of my troubles with all of this. And so it's just nice to know we're in good company. And you talked about like the shame component or like the negative self-talk of why can't I do this? Why doesn't my brain work this way? Like it's good to know that there are tools that we can do that can help us. So
I actually wrote, well, thanks. I wrote a short sample inner monologue in case there's anybody on the phone who doesn't know what it's like to have the ADHD brain. And you can let me know in the comments if this captures what it's like for you if you do have ADHD. So let's say we hear like we should be exercising like an hour a day. So our first thought is, okay, like we should be doing this for an hour a day, and should can be a bit of a trigger term because there's always things that we like want to be doing, and the should has this sense of like, well, why haven't you already started? So then we think, okay, but where do I start with an hour of exercise in a day? So you pull out your phone and you start to Google workout plans for beginners. And then you got a little bit of shame because you're like, every year I'm typing workout plans for beginners. Why have I not made it to the next level? And then you're like, okay, well, I don't want to start with home workouts that feels too easy. Like, should I go to the gym? Do I need a gym membership? There's so many machines in the gym. And like sometimes the gym smells funny. And like the one in my apartment kind of sucks. And like then I got to put it on my credit card. And like, and I'm remembering now that I pay my credit card bill? And like, why don't I just put it on auto pay? Because I have the money and like, but I don't know. I guess I get distracted with Googling stuff when I pull up my phone to put on the auto pay. And like, how did I end up in the kitchen again? Like, why am I here? Right? Like that is a let me know if you find yourself resonating with that. I mean, so I think the easiest thing we could do to help make this better is, and these are applicable. I have some examples that we'll go over in a moment, but these are some things that I got right out of this book, ADD-friendly ways to organize your life. Our very own founder is the co-author here. The first thing is to try to tie a new habit to an old one, or what we call habit stacking. So a common thing that my clients will want to do is to like meditate. So it's like take time out to be more self-aware. And you're like, well, how can I take more time out to be self-aware when I'm like running through my day and not taking any breaks, which is not totally accurate. So depending on your morning routine, if there is a period of time where um, or actually maybe a better example is like walking the dog, right? So a lot of us got pups. And coming back in from walking your pup, the first thing that we often do is to, after our playtime with the pup, is to like plop down on the couch and open our phone or cut on the TV. That could be the perfect time instead to pick up your phone and open up a meditation app like Calm or Headspace. The way that you can build this habit then is to, like, if you're already going to do something, like put something before or after it. If you are a musician, I will often recommend that, like, if you know you're going to eat dinner every night, like play your instrument or do your practicing before you eat dinner. That way, dinner can be sort of a reward, and that's a way for you to be able to anchor your evening after work. The second one, making the habit as easy as possible. Um, and that example that I just gave of like, I want to work out an hour a day, 5 times a week. Like, if you've not been working out at all, like starting to work out 1 hour a day, 5 times a week, beyond it being hard, it might like not be healthy for you. Like you don't want to start at that level. This sounds kind of crazy, but my recommendation is always to whatever idea I get in my head of like, this is going to be my new goal, I like cut it in half or cut it into thirds right off the bat because I know I'm going to have a goal that's going to be, there's nothing wrong with being ambitious, but we're trying to build a habit. So we want to start small to be able to build some momentum. So instead of saying I want to work out for an hour a day, my recommendation would be let's just start with 10 minutes. And and let's try to do that 3 times in a week. The more broadly we define success, the more often we are able to say, I was successful. So rather than to set a really high standard for yourself, like start lower and build some momentum. The third recommendation is to make the reminder hard to ignore. So we can't always rely on our brain to remind us of things at the times that we want it to. And so, as much as you can externalize or put outside of your brain and onto paper or on a wall, like what it is that you're trying to accomplish, the better. So, for sure, you can have things on your phone. I'm a post-it note guy. I realize there might be folks who don't want to waste paper. I feel like a post-it note for me is can make a world of difference as a reminder when I put them around different places in my apartment if there's a new skill that I am trying to build. Remember, we got some things that are working against us. So we have to be able to have some other items in our environment that can help to reinforce the behavior of building the habit, which speaks to number four, to put the reminders everywhere. I mean, if you live with a non-ADHD partner, they might not like your decorations around the house. So there might need to be some negotiation on where you put these things. But I find like putting things in the bathroom mirror. I have a glass top desk. I can put it on my desk. The fridge is always a great place because we're always going to get more snacks. Um, Put it in your, depending on where it is, it could be on your dresser if you need to get out clothes to go to the gym, a lot of places, but don't be bashful about needing to get your brain the support that it needs. It's not operating with all that it needs up front. Or we could argue it's wired differently. So we want to make it as easy as possible to get going with these things. Fifth, to visualize yourself using the new behavior. So because of deficits in our nonverbal working memory, like our ability to uh, recall things or like re-sense things as they happened, there's a deficit there. But it's a muscle that we can build. A lot of these are muscles that we can build and strengthen. So as part of your effort toward building a new habit, I mean, you don't have to close your eyes, but I'm a close your eyes guy. And to actually envision yourself going through the steps that you need to in order to get things done. So let's say you're like, I want to visualize myself going to the gym. Like think about yourself going to your closet, getting out the clothes that you need, getting the shoes that you need, like getting dressed, grabbing your water bottle and your keys, leaving out of the house, driving to the gym or going to your gym. Like being able to rehearse that mentally will make it a little bit easier for you when you do it for the first time in real life, because in some ways you've already done it.
Can I?
Uh,
These are
sure.
amazing. I just want to pause for a second because we have some good questions.
Oh, yeah.
Well, one thing I wanted to say was when I think back at strategies that worked for me and things that stick, it really is about like external reminders. Like when I have my Apple Watch, like,
Mhm.
obviously that was a little bit of an investment, but that actually pinged me to let me know that I have to do this if I set my reminder, or telling me about my steps. There were so many times that my Apple Watch told me that. And I was like, you know what? If I didn't have that on, I wouldn't have even known that I have only taken 10 steps today,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, someone else asked a question about post-it notes and feeling like it starts to work at first, but then start ignoring them after a few days. And I am very similar. And I feel like because it just kind of becomes like part of the landscape. And that's why I think like for me, that's why I needed that like king, external, like, you know, that thing. But do you have any thoughts on that, Bruce, of
Yeah, the ADHD brain is supremely wired for novelty. And the minute that you recognize that something that you did as a tool is like no longer working, switch it up. The good thing here is that because our brains are wired differently, we tend to be more creative. So the minute that you start to see a any kind of reminder that you put in your space, like a post-it note. I think, well, how can I had a teacher, she would say, how can you re-sparkleize it? So maybe, yeah, maybe it's no longer, maybe you don't need the note anymore. Maybe it's now a reminder on your phone. Or if this is in keeping with the example of like going to the gym, maybe it is having your shoes out in a certain place. Or maybe it's while you are making your breakfast, you're playing a workout video in the background on YouTube, like just to get your mind in the right spot. But yeah, at some point, the post-it notes everywhere might be too much. But then think, well, what other ways can I remind myself in ways that I won't ignore? Um, I get into this in a second, but there's levels of support that you can get when you're building a new habit. There's some things that you can do just on your own. So like on your own, you can make a schedule. You can set rewards for yourself. You can practice self-compassion and motivate yourself. But sometimes the habit, like you need extra scaffolding to make it happen. So this might be like accountability is a huge smart support system for folks with ADHD. So maybe it means instead of a post-it note, it's a reminder or a text from a friend or a family member. Um, the next level of support is getting like a professional, so like a coach or a therapist or someone else. So like you can bring other people into your on your sort of ADHD habit team, because the post-it notes are going to work for some people some of the time, not everybody all the time. But there's multiple ways that you can get that kind of support or build in the accountability that you need.
awesome?
Was there another question?
No, just a comment that visualizing the behavior is especially important if you're a very concrete thinker and struggle with ambiguity. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right, number six, practice instant correction. So this means, have you ever been sitting down and then relaxing, and your brain reminds you of this thing that you said you were going to do, which could be this new habit that you're trying to build? If you can, whenever possible, get up to do that thing right away. So if you're like, I said I was going to start my oral care routine at 8:30 every night, and it's 8:45 and you missed it. There's multiple ways you could respond, like, oh, it's 8:45, we missed the window. Guess it's not happening tonight. Or what I'd recommend is that you say, you know what? Whatever I'm doing now, I'm going to stop and I'm going to go do it right now. Like it doesn't matter if it's late. The a phrase that I heard recently that I liked is any level of better is better. Some people say progress over perfection. The the long and short of it is like don't try to do it perfectly. Like if you miss the deadline or you miss the window, like still do it because you are trying to build a habit. It is just like a muscle. So if you aren't using it or flexing it, it's not going to get better. So it doesn't matter when you work out, it just matters that you work out. Same is true for your habits. Oh wow, I kind of got into number seven about getting back on the horse and riding. Uh, this is really about practicing self-compassion. And actually, I have some notes on self-compassion that I want to share because I think this is um, really important for those of us with ADHD, especially those of us who get diagnosed later in life. You've lived an entire life, multiple decades of having a lot of reinforcement that the way that your brain works is wrong, that you are doing things wrong, and that you can't get things right. And you start to get this sense of not like I am um um not that I sometimes forget things or I sometimes have a hard time with things. You get the sense that like I am a flawed person fundamentally, or like I'm just a bad person, or I haven't been able to figure this out yet. What does this say about me? When I say practice self-compassion, there's a book, Dr. Kristen Neff, that I read a while ago that was very impactful for me. And it's called Self-Compassion. I forgot the subtitle. But she talks about this exercise that I recommend my clients do, and I'll share with you all. In the moment when we make a mistake or when we forget something, we tend to say, we're very accusatory to ourselves. Like, why haven't I got this? Or like, why did I make that mistake? Flip that around. When you start with the why questions to yourself, that's not always a bad thing, I guess, depending on the question. I would suggest instead of saying why, it's I notice, I notice I forgot this thing. I notice it is hard for me to build this habit instead of why is it hard? The other piece you add to that is you make it less about you and more of a shared communal issue because you're not the only person who is experiencing this. Because it can feel very lonely when it's like just you not getting it right. So you could say, I'm trying to build this new habit of working out every day, and this is really hard for me. I could envision that this is hard for a lot of people who are trying to do this like across the world right now. And then the final piece to this is like, what do you need to do in that moment? Like, what do you need to offer yourself in that moment? It could be that you need to get dressed and go to the gym, or it could be
Yeah.
that you call a friend and say, hey, I'm having a really hard time with this. I think sometimes we might be afraid to be vulnerable because it seems like everybody else has figured it out and like they don't need any help. And we might be afraid to ask for help. We can get rid of that. The uh that desire to make it seem like we have it all figured out and like we're keeping it together, like that's going to get in the way of you getting the help that you need. Like let people know what you're going through and what you're struggling with, the people who care, and like get the help and support and encouragement that they offer. Like you don't have to do this alone. Um,
And
okay,
I just that was
yeah,
just very powerful too. So thank you for that. But we have two great
yeah.
questions that really
Okay,
talk to
sure.
this. Yeah. So one person asked, what exactly is motivation? Like, how would you tell the difference between a want or goal versus an impulse?
Hmm. I can answer this. Well, I guess I can only answer it the way I answer it. To me, an impulse feels very sudden, kind of like unwarranted, and typically is the reaction to like some uncomfortable emotion or uncomfortable thought that I am feeling. So like if I have a especially long day, like, and I'm driving, kind of embarrassed to say this, but I'm like on my way home, like, you should get Popeyes. Like, you should just stop and like get some Popeyes. That'll like make it better. Um, or an impulse to, um, um, do I have an impulse to not work out? Not often. I mean, I think the nature of the impulse is it's like you don't have control over that. It comes up, can kind of take over your thinking, and you're like, okay, I'll do this. You sort of like follow without really thinking about it. For me, like a goal or desire, I think it's shaped by like the intention and like what you are, what the goal actually is. So, like, I know I'm going to have thoughts all day to do like different things or to not do things. And a question I ask myself is this behavior, is this activity, this substance, is this going to promote me or demote me? And the impulses I find are things that long term demote. So that's a filter that I use when I have a thought to do something. Like, am I trying to run away from something, or am I trying to run to closer toward to my goals that I have? Hope that gives you, at least that's how I would answer it. I think other folks might have a different answer, but that's how I filter out my impulses from things that like I really should be doing and want to devote my time to.
I think also just to add to that, where I went with that was like when I'm acting on impulse versus where it was like actually motivation to do that thing. So where I went was I was thinking of like if it's something at work that I needed to do and I'm having trouble finding the motivation to do it. It's something that's on the back burner. It's not impacting anyone. But then the second it's impacting someone, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to do that thing. And so I feel like that's the difference. I didn't really have the motivation. It just was the uncomfortable feeling of now it's like impacting someone else. So now I'm acting on impulse, which also I probably didn't do it well. I didn't think it through.
Mm.
So I think that kind of hopefully that answered that. That's what I thought about. But I liked your example as well.
Yeah, the motivation piece is tricky because there will be, it waxes and wanes, and it's not like a consistent thing that bubbles up all the time. Like there'll be times where you will do things and you don't feel like doing it. And so I just try to use motivation as less of a motivator, because sometimes my body and brain can deceive me into thinking like you don't want to do this. And it's like, well, where's that voice coming from? Like, am I trying to promote or demote? Or is this moving me closer to what I want or farther away? That's what I use as my barometer.
Love that. Two more questions, and it's relating
Sure.
to this, so I hope we're good on time going through these. But regarding number 7, so getting back on the horse, how would we work around task paralysis or executive dysfunction in these moments? Because sometimes I can stand up and do what I have to do, but the reality is that most times I simply can't. Would you have any tips or insight in that matter?
Hmm. So you're like absolutely stuck in paralysis. You know what you need to do, but you can't do it. If you got somebody you can call for support or who can do the thing with you, like that's one of the first places that I will go. I think the task paralysis can sometimes happen when we aren't sure of like what the very next step is, or if the next step seems too hard, or if you got too many things that you are trying to do. I talk about these strategies, but I still struggle with some of these things where if I have a very long to-do list and you have those days where you feel like there are things getting added and not being taken off, you can get to a point where it just feels like sometimes I feel like my brain has reached capacity and I'm like, well, you know what? Now nothing's getting done because I have like I don't know where to start. Everything feels so urgent and um, it there's too much to do. So the first step is, I think, always practicing self-compassion and recognizing that this is like a hard time for you and like allowing that emotion. But then I think it is about like, how can I make the very next step as impossibly easy as possible? So let's say it's uh, washing dishes or loading the dishwasher. If you're like me, there are um this I also feel a little vulnerable sharing, but you might have dishes that are drying in the rack You might have dishes that are in the sink, and you might have clean or dirty dishes in the dishwasher. And you're like, so you think, all right, I want to load the dishwasher, but before I do that, I have to get these other dishes dry and put these other ones in there and start it. And it's like, ugh, this is too much stuff. What's the first step? The first step is like putting on, like sitting up from the couch and putting on my house shoes, right? Next step, walking over to the sink. Like, very next step, opening the dishwasher door, like pulling out the bottom rack, like putting the plates where the plates go. It sounds maybe kind of pedantic, but what I have found is that when I break these things down into these like micro steps, it actually helps to build some momentum. Because you think back halfway through your task and you're like, look, I got all the way over here just by getting myself to think about putting on my slippers and walking over to the sink and opening up the dishwasher. So to answer the question, I think there are a couple of things you can do, and it kind of depends on what the thing is. If there's having accountability or somebody there to support you is always going to be helpful. So if you can have somebody help to yank you out of that emotion or temporary state, I think that's helpful. One or two, practicing self-compassion, like realizing that it's hard for you to do. And then picking one thing, right? We can't do everything all at the same time. Everything, what is it? Everything everywhere all at once?
Yeah.
Like pick one thing, break it down into super small steps to the point where it feels like, okay, I can commit to putting on slippers and walking over to the dishwasher. Like, do that.
That, I mean, obviously everything's resonating with me, but that really resonated with me too. Cause I think we go from like all or nothing. I think of like black or white, like I have to do all of this at once. And even when you said dishes and you talked about like the three different steps, I didn't go to that small of like, just get off the couch. And that to me was like, that's easy. I can do that.
Yeah, yeah.
I can do that. Okay. What's next? So thank you.
Yeah.
I think that kind of relates to this next question where it's what are things you can do when you're in a slump to get out? Sorry, give me 1 second. What do you say to
Uh,
yourself or do to those immediate corrections?
so there is an article by I want to say her name is Jessica McCabe. She's got a YouTube channel called How to ADHD, and she talks about building a dopamine menu or a dopamine. And these are activities that you can use to like transition into a task or to just like kind of change your space to give you the mood, to get you in the mood that you need in order to get started with whatever it is that you want to do. So some of those things could be, sometimes it could be taking a nap. Other times it could be like music is a big, uh, how do I say this? Changing the music can change my mood almost instantly. So like for me, if I'm feeling like I don't want to do something or I need energy to get off the couch, there's certain for me it's Beyonce, certain tracks that I'm like, okay, like this is changing my mental space just enough where I'm like open to the idea of doing something differently. So it could be taking a couple of deep breaths, practicing some mindfulness. It could be standing up doing like 10 or 20 jumping jacks. Anything that can get you out of your head and like into your body. So maybe that's dancing, if it's doing a little bit of stretching or yoga. I'm a big fan of yoga with Adrienne. She's got a lot of like 5 to 7 minute videos to like help you just like break the funk and like move your body. Um, um, Sometimes it can help if you have a list in your head, but the list isn't written down to like actually write down the different things that you have to do. We try to keep a lot of things in our head, which is like not advisable. And when it's up here, you can start ruminating on like the same 3 or 4 things, and you're like, wait, I'm building this list and I'm not making any progress. Take it out of here and put it on the paper. And that can make it a little bit easier to prioritize and to pick where you want to start to make some progress.
Perfect. Sorry, someone also just mentioned something in the chat about
Okay.
Goblin, which I know you're probably going to get to. So maybe we, yes. So,
Oh yeah. I
yeah.
mean, we can jump
Or
there
if you,
now.
well, I was going to say, if you want to finish up, because I think the practice for at least 30 days in a row, I don't know if we've gotten to that one.
Oh, yeah, this is a recommendation from the book. I 30 days in a row feels very ambitious if you've not done it at all. Um I have a I wish I would have brought it over. I have a weekly calendar on my kitchen island. And at the end of each day, I use it to write like what I accomplished that day. And having I just think I plan in terms of like a week, maybe 2 weeks. And if I'm starting any new habit, I never start with like, I want to do this every day. Even if it's something really important, I start with like 3 days, 4 days, next week, maybe 5 days. I think the goal is, it takes time to build a new habit. So for sure, practice. I think number six, practicing the instant corrections, like is helpful to help you keep your pace. Um, I don't know if I mean, I think I've heard it takes 21 days or 22 days to build a new habit. I don't know. I think the important part is to practice and to reward yourself along the way. Like I don't know if this is scientifically accurate, but I like to say that I give myself a little dopamine burst when I complete a task. I used to buy, this was very effective actually, the party noise makers where you like blow on it, it's like I would have I would have one in each room. And if I did something that I wanted to do, I'm like, oh, we need to punctuate this moment because I was able to do it. And I blow on it. And it's like silly, but it was enough of a like reward or a celebration that it kept me doing it for a while. I use working out a lot because that has always been I've always loved working out, but it can be hard to get going. Um, I'm not saying go out and like run up the credit card bill, but I like to think like if I can work out for, 10 days out of this next 14-day period, I'm gonna go to Lululemon and get some new shorts. Um, I know you don't want to start rewarding yourself with other habits that might be bad, so like be
Yeah.
careful about that, but like you're allowed to like treat yourself or reward yourself. Sometimes it could be like it doesn't have to be anything that causes you to spend money. But like nobody wants to do things and not get a reward at the end. That's lame. So you can think about what motivates you, and then have that. You don't have to attach it to the 30 days. If you can do the 30 days, great. I mean, the idea here, like, it's not about like, I mean, it's about building a habit, but it's about you transforming into the person that you want to be. Like it's not, it's like it's bigger than the habit itself. You're like, I am the type of person who has a consistent bedtime. Like I am the type of person who eats fruits and vegetables every day. Like I mean, when we focus on the habits are like the small pieces that help us get there. But like big picture is like I am becoming a better version of myself. And like the reward pretty soon will be the benefits that you experience by getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep at night and by feeling energized when you're eating the right foods and by being able to counter the negative self-talk that happens if you make a mistake or if you forget to do something. Like maybe that's the other thing that I would add to this list about what can you do about it. Like tie it to the bigger goal that you have. Like it's never about this thing that's right in front of you. It's about the person that you're becoming. And if you're like me, I need a very compelling vision of the future that I create that's going to get me to make a decision to do this thing that I don't really want to do over this thing that I can do right now that'll make me feel good. Um, okay, now we can get to the apps.
I was also just real quick in terms of the rewarding yourself. Like you said, a lot of these things that we're talking about have like natural rewards. Like I know
Mm,
when I clean my place, I feel better. Like I do not feel good
mhm.
when my place is messy. I know that by working out, I really do increase my dopamine and, sleeping better, eating better. Um, but yeah, I think for me, it's the not making it all or nothing, not doing it. I need to work out every day for an hour a day and breaking it down into those small steps. Like, let me just drive to the gym. I also find if I'm at the gym, I work out. Like, it's just
Yeah,
getting there. And I think a lot of people struggle with that.
yeah.
That was my two.
A tip that I just thought about, and I use this all the time, and it's very helpful if you have a watch, like I have an Apple Watch, you Google Watch, or whatever kind of watch, or your phone, is to set a timer to do something. Like the what is my mnemonic to remember this? Um, in urgent chaos nap, IUCN. Um, that is, and that stands for interest, urgency, challenge, and novelty. Like those four components uh, of a task that you were trying to complete, like turning the dial up and down on those can help to like mix it up and make it a little bit more interesting. And so like I like to think like how much of this activity can I do in 1 minute? Or let me set my watch for like 3 minutes. Like for cleaning, that's a really good example. Like I'm just gonna clean, I got 5 minutes. And this actually works for me. I was like, I got 5 minutes. I'm gonna do 1 minute in the living room. Watch goes off, I reset it. That's done. 1 minute in the kitchen, 1 minute in the bathroom, 1 minute in the den, like 1 minute outside or whatever. Like sometimes I stop at the end of 5 minutes. And that's more cleaning than I would have done had I not set the timer at all. What usually happens is that you clean for a little bit longer. Like you got up and you got moving, so you got some momentum going. You'll probably clean longer than the 1 minute that you set on your watch. But even if you only do the 1 minute, you did more than you were going to do. So using a watch to either turn it into like a game, like how much can I get done in this time? Or like the idea of standing up and, you know, taking a 30-minute walk feels too much. Maybe I just do a 5-minute walk. That can help as well.
The
Um,
adding a
oh,
timer too, someone made a point that sometimes we may break things up into too many small tasks, and then we get a little distracted in the small
hmm,
tasks and lose sight of the actual task that we set out to do. Example, possibly cleaning your room. You can you can find many things in there, get distracted, start, oh, now I need to organize these papers that I've had, or. So I think that having the timer helps with that too, of like, I'm only going to devote 30 minutes to this today, help me
yeah.
stay on track.
And I think with the another tip for cleaning, like I think it's helpful to separate out like what we are considering to be like I use the word tidy, which means I want to be able to see the floor, or like cleaning, which is like I want to be able to like eat off the floor. Look, you wouldn't eat off the floor, but the idea is that the floor would be very clean. And so I will divide cleaning into like I just want things to be in their space. So like everything has a place. For me, tidying is I'm putting things where they belong. That means that you need to set a space for everything, which is a challenge, which can be a challenge, but that's how you are able to tidy without it taking a whole hour. And then you can decide like once a week, I want to do a deep clean on my trash can, or I want to mop, or I had a schedule for a while. Well, it was, I would tidy every day. And I think it was mop it Monday, toilet Tuesday, wipe it Wednesday, Trash Thursday, and I think Friday was laundry, but it was like a system that I followed to like make the house cleaning much easier. Okay, I do want to talk about apps because I know that's a lot of uh, well, that's the software that I have on the slide. Before I want you all to, I'm going to ask that you be open to this. Um, Before you download an app, and especially before you pay for one, think about like what you want the app to do for you. A lot of apps are promoted as like a solution, and you're like, oh, this seems like a great thing I could use. And then you're trying to like find the problem that it fits to, which is why often we'll get an idea for an app. I'll tell you a story. I was on YouTube, like I am often, and this lady who has ADHD, she was like, I found the best calendar app for people with ADHD. And I was like, oh, she's got ADHD. And she said she found the best app for ADHD people. I watched the video and I'm like, I'm not totally sure. I downloaded it. It's a calendar app. Sunsama. So maybe y'all probably downloaded it before. I get on it and I'm like, girl, this is way too complicated. Like, how is this the best? This is the worst app for ADHD people. And reflecting on that experience, I thought, oh, Bruce, this was the best app for her. Like, and you didn't have this problem of needing to put your task this certain way. So, like, as you are starting to develop a system for whatever you're trying to build. So, like, I'm trying to be better at capturing my thoughts and prioritizing them, right? Like, have that in mind as you are looking through different solutions for apps. Like, don't just get an app because it sounds cool, because pretty soon you're going to download it and not use it. Because that's what often happens. That's tricky. I have some categories of apps that I think could be helpful. And I've tied these to executive functioning, which we talk about a lot. My definitions of executive function come from Dr. Russell Barkley. Another book I'd recommend is Thriving with Adult ADHD. If you know Dr. Barkley, you know he takes ADHD very seriously. He also has a weekly like research review on ADHD. It's like kind of low tech, but like straight to the point, and it's, I think, very helpful. The first executive function that develops is self-awareness. So like this is us being like aware of ourselves and in the space. And an app that I found that's helpful for that for ADHDers is one called Mood Fit. It's it. I want to kind of pull it up real fast. What it does is it allows me a chance to, throughout the day, it'll ask you like, how are you feeling? Or what are you thinking about? It's got its root in cognitive behavioral therapy. The basic premise is that our thoughts are driving our emotions and then our behaviors. There's a whole loop here. And so Mood Fit throughout the day allows me to capture like what I am feeling, what I am thinking about. We use the word process emotions a lot. Like, what the heck is processing? This is one way to do it where it'll help you deal with big feelings that come up that you don't want to let you get in the way of making the right decision down the road. So Mood Fit is one. That's one that I've used. Some other ones that I've heard of that I cannot recommend, but they might be great. Reflecti and Mind Doc, or you could just use a journal, like pen and paper. I have my journal here, and I put everything in it. One note, I know that we get excited and we're like, oh, I'm gonna go out and like buy a new journal, or I'm like gonna do this thing and like I need something new to get started. No, you don't. Like use a journal you already have and just use one for everything. We don't need multiple journals. That's going to be confusing at some point. So just stick with the one. The second one, the second app that I'll recommend is actually two related to inhibition. So like our ability to resist impulses. There's one called Forest that I use. And Forest is a app that there's several apps that do this. I think there's another one called Opal that I used, but it was too effective and I didn't want that on my phone. Forest will certain apps, block you from accessing certain apps on your phone so that you can like stay focused on what it is that you need to do. You can do this in increments of like 5, 10, 15, 25 minutes. But the goal it gamifies it. It makes it interesting for us. You get to essentially build a forest with these trees and plants and things. So that's one way to like not have your phone be a distraction and actually have it support you and not getting lost into a task that you don't need to be doing. There's another app I haven't tried, but I've heard a lot about from other folks, and it's based on this principle of body doubling. Like when you got ADHD, sometimes it's helpful to just have someone else around working. It could be that it's helpful because they are modeling what it means to stay focused on a task. It could also be that accountability of this is what I am working on during this period can help you stay focused. There's an app called, or less of an app, it's a service called Focus Mate, and you can find body doubling folks around the world where you can sign up for different time segments. Let me give an example of when this is really helpful. Like mail. I feel like mail is a challenge for a lot of ADHDers. And you have probably a growing pile of mail somewhere or junk mail that you haven't gone through. I think Focus Mate could be a great opportunity for you to have a body doubling session where you just quietly open up the mail, right? You figure out what I want to keep, what I want to throw away, and you can start to work on the pile. Um, so I mentioned Opal already, which is not, I mean, they like locked down every app on my phone, and I was not a huge fan of that. But maybe that'll work for you.
To each their own, yes.
Yeah. Another thing that could be helpful when it comes to our nonverbal working memory. So I've talked about this, I think, a bit already, where it's like can be hard to like visualize things. So if you're ever in a position and you are trying to plan something or to think through something, it's helpful to like not just rely on your brain. It's to like externalize it. An app that I absolutely love is Trello, which some of you might be familiar with already. Trello allows you to divide things into cards. It's sort of like a virtual post-it note wall without the actual physical post-it notes. If you're like working on a project or there's like a lot of steps involved in something, Trello is a great place to go to make a list of everything that you need to do. So you build a card for each task, and then you can put it into categories. So like I need to do this now, I need to do this later, or like 2 weeks from now. And you can move things around. Rather than do all of this planning in your head with the clutter that might be there, like externalize it onto the Trello board. It can make it easier to visualize and to plan so that you're not having to only do it in your head.
I've used Trello before, and it's exactly that. It gets it out
Okay.
of your head. It gets it out of your head. And I found that when I'm feeling the most overwhelmed, if I just start to write down what I need to do, it is
Yeah.
nothing near what I thought the load was. And I'm like, okay. And Trello is great too, because at the end, when you're done, it does a little confetti. So I think about
Yeah.
your once you realize
Uh,
you're done.
one of the apps that when do I talk about? It's called Streaks. It allows you it's very simple iPhone app. And I'm sure you can find something like it on Google Play. Any habit that you want to track. So if you want to do something 2 times a day, 10 times a day, once a week, 3 times a month, you can set the right frequency for you. You can choose the icon so that it's something that you're like excited to see. When you complete that task, you hold down the button and it does a little jingle for you. Like I like having that sense of satisfaction at the end. Um, Another app that I would use or suggest for another executive function, emotion dysregulation. And this could really be any mindfulness app like calm, insight timer. I am a huge fan of Headspace. Like as a coach, as a former instructional designer and trainer, like their interface is so tight and so helpful and simple with helping you take a few moments out to be mindful. Like sometimes mindfulness can feel kind of like mystical or like maybe it's otherworldly or kind of weird. Like it makes it very practical and helping you take some time out of the day and like check in with yourself. If your ADHD is like mine, it feels like you're like kind of perpetually running out of time and like always behind and like there's always more that you got to be doing and like it's like it's this sense of like you can't an engine that you can't turn off. Like learning how to one like observe and not run from that feeling, but two like take time out to just do some deep breathing can like make a world of difference. If you're in a whirlwind of like stress and angst and like anxiety, like having taking some time out to understand what it means to have that there, but still be able to like operate and move forward is a valuable skill to learn. I talked about streaks. There's another game that I know a lot of folks like, Habatica, where it's, how do I describe this? It instantly turned me off. I think it's the way the graphics work, but it's a popular way to, what did we used to have when we were little? And we used to carry it on our keychain, and you would like feed it, and
Oh,
like,
a
yeah,
Tamagotchi.
yeah.
Of
Like
course.
having something to take care of, like that could be a way to help reinforce a habit. It doesn't, it's not my thing, but that's okay. Like they don't make apps just for me, they make it for everybody. Goblin tools. I think I want to go ahead and pull this one up if I can. We got enough time for me to pull it up?
Yeah, you should be able
Uh,
to.
uh,
That was something that someone else mentioned. I just wanted to go back to see what they said about it too. Type in a task, choose the level of detail, and it'll break it down into steps. Yeah.
so
This
I have
also, can I say, is very ADHD friendly. There is nothing on this page to distract you. I'm immediately at the search bar.
Yeah, so I think this is cool because you can type in, like, I want to type make the bid, like, just as an example. And I hit this button here and it breaks it down into smaller steps. So, I mean, remember earlier when I was like, how to start the dishwashing if you like, or unloading the dishwasher and you like can't think of what the very next thing to do? Like, if this was me, I would have this saved on my home screen on my phone, and I would go here immediately to like anytime that there was a task that I didn't know where to start. I think broadly, I mean, there's a way that you can leverage AI where it's very helpful for you. I have gone to Chat GPT and typed in, and everybody might not be comfortable with this level of sharing with a robot, but I'm like, I have ADHD and I need things to be very, very simple. I am trying to develop a schedule for like making my YouTube videos and I keep getting stuck. Can you break it down to like how I could do this in 10 to 15 minutes a day and like create a content calendar for the month, right? Seems like a kind of a jumbled up prompt, but it works. Like it'll give it to you like day 1 through 30. And I'm like, well, this is very cool. Anytime that I am stuck, I'm likely to use an AI tool like ChatGPT or like this Goblin tools. I type make the bed, which most of us like kind of know how to do, but sometimes it's nice to follow steps and check things off when they're done. So
Yes.
you can use this for more sophisticated items than making the bed, but it's there.
Well, and I think
It,
whoever mentioned it, and Chad also said you can change the level of detail. So maybe like, it doesn't
uh,
have to give you all of that. But I completely agree. I know AI is, you know, not controversial, but it's a new thing. It can be a little scary, but for ChatGPT, I definitely use that many times to help me plan things out. You are still here.
Okay. Oh, I was starting to look at the chat,
Oh,
which
there we go.
may be a bad idea because now I was getting is distracted. I want to wait right before there's something I want to share. We don't have to close right after this. I know we're getting close to the end, but there is something that I want to share with the group. It's less about a specific strategy and just something that I think I want the group to know. Uh, share. Oh, where'd it go? Can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Uh, by the time that a lot of folks reach out to get support from a therapist or a coach or a psychiatrist, they've had a lot of experiences of like what feel like failure and not getting things right. And often when you have ADHD, you are more likely to have either anxiety or depression or both. And because ADHD is or the term like invisible disability, like you can't see it, like in your brain, when I opened up, I talked about all of the things that are happening up here. Externally, it can seem like, oh, they're just being lazy, or like they don't care, or they don't have like what it takes to get things done. And I just want to, well, one, I want to validate those feelings of like, no, I can't explain to you why it's hard for me to get off the couch and do something that it seems like it's easy to do, but like it is hard. And I saw this quote recently on Instagram and I was like, oh, this captures what I feel for my clients. They often come in and if they're trying something new, it'll be like, oh, I didn't do this right or this wasn't perfect. And all I hear is, wow, they like tried something new, they learned, and now they're going to be able to do it better in the future. I'll read this briefly because I think this is very accurate. It says, to everyone who bravely steps back into the rhythm of life after facing the shadows of depression, heartbreak, or life's harsh blows, including ADHD and anxiety and other things, your resilience is a quiet revolution. Each day you rise to confront your thoughts, to reclaim your joy, and to embrace the possibility of change is a testament to your strength. In a world that often overlooks the battles fought within, know that your courage shines bright. You're not just surviving, you are rewriting your story. And that is something truly remarkable. I see you and I am proud of your fight. Um, I think in this conversation about like building habits, and we focus a lot on the tactical things which are important. I mean, I want to connect it to like you are like working to improve yourself, which is like what's a better way to spend your effort so that you're better able to support others. And it's hard. It's possible, but it's hard. But every day that you do it and you don't give up, I think is a day that you celebrate. So like don't be so hard on yourself where you feel like you have to do it perfectly every time. Like throw that expectation out the window. It's not about that. It's about showing up. If you make a mistake, trying again and keeping at it until you get it. It's very possible.
Thank you so much, Bruce. What was the other
Yeah.
thing that you said about being better?
Oh, any level of better is better.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that quote, I'm going to share that with everybody afterwards too.
Okay.
Along with the resources, everything. Um, this has been great, Bruce. I
Oh,
appreciate so much. People are echoing in the comments to us, but I feel like this was like the pep talk I needed. So I hope that others feel the same way. And like I mentioned, from these talks, we've found, I mean, even myself, I really enjoy doing these because I get so much out of these. But we found that we want to kind of segment it to be more specific to different populations. So Bruce is going to spearhead our adult ADHD series, which is starting next month in February. I actually have the date if anyone is interested. It's going to be on February 20th, around the same time. And if you're subscribed to the Chesapeake stuff, you'll get this information. But someone also mentioned in chat about how to talk to a loved one about your ADHD and how that can obviously impact relationships. And so for February, with Valentine's Day, we are actually going to be speaking about relationships in ADHD for adults, navigating love, communication, and connection. So I think we'll address that one next month. But I appreciate everything. And so many of you have shared your own apps and tools. And yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. We will send you all of this stuff. And Bruce, do you have any last words?
No, and I see a list of the apps. Yeah, what I can do is update the slides and put the apps that I mentioned in there so that folks, well, are we sending the slides too, or?
Yes, so I'll send the slides too. And then you also mentioned a few books throughout this and just things that you referenced, and I wrote down as much as I could. So we will send you all of this.
Okay. I have books, articles, and YouTube channels and podcasts that I would recommend for people with ADHD and folks who want to um, give it to someone else who might have ADHD. So
Perfect.
those are top of mind, and I can put those on the deck and we can share them.
Yes. And like I mentioned, we will also be sending this recording and you can share it with anyone as well. It's just going to go up on YouTube. So, all right. Thank you, everyone. Stay tuned for future events. This was great. Bye.
Yeah.